The Delta is raw. In its land and its humanity. From the land to the sky, the blue to the brown, when the rain comes, growing up there and you could smell the storms coming across the fields. The way the earth interacts with the sky it's incredible, but intense. And I think that intensity permeates everything. Nothing comes easy, and you're just gonna push through it. Everybody in the Delta has to be tough. It's just a tough place. And that kind of resiliency, it builds people. We're not gonna let the negative define us.
I tell you what, as I look around today, it's not what I see, but it's what I hear. And the sound that I hear now, those kids over there on that trampoline, joyful, playing, doesn't have a care in the world, just free. I remember that same sound in 1995, children running across the lawn, riding their bikes down the street, playing in the backyard. And one day I was sitting just right across the street where my mother's house is located. And this building has been here for a while, but it was vacant and somewhat dilapidated. And I thought about there are nearly 200 houses circling this building. What could I do for the kids? Motivating them to take their rightful place in this world and make a difference. And this is the very first meeting of kids in the Southgate community in Indianola. And that summer, I didn't quite know what I was doing. I didn't have enough staff. Each class may have had 60 kids in it. Bathroom was not working properly. Most of the lights weren't working properly. And we started out sitting on the floor. But that's the story everybody needs to hear. It's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. 27 years later, we're still on the corner. If you're thinking about the progress of others, if you're thinking about inspiring and motivating others, you can take the little you have and make a whole lot. This is living proof. You're gonna start me to preaching.
Shaw High School closed around 2016. Okay, Doc, we're gonna go around this way.
Okay.
I attended this high school from 1970. I'm a 1974 graduate. I served as president of each of my classes from freshman class through senior year here at Shaw High School. Next, we're gonna take a look at the original band uniforms. A lot of memory in this building. All of this is original.
Look, man, look at those Hawks. Is that like the big drum major hat
It
right
is.
there?
It is. Hey, you guys,
That's the big one. That's the big one. So that's the, yeah, that's the tall step one.
This is our 1973 overall state championship team.
The
One and only. This was actually history because prior to us winning the overall state championship, nobody ever knew where Shaw was.
Yeah,
and in a sense, we put Shaw High School on the map. I'm number 25, so I was a member
right in
of
the
that
middle.
team.
Look at you, man.
You had an all-black team winning the overall state championship. We beat 5 and 6A schools. And it wasn't supposed to be possible. During the integration process, the black and white community here was not, we didn't jail. And it took a couple of years for us to get, to feel comfortable here because they looked at blacks as being low-class people. And I guess it's because of their upbringing. There was not a lot of, or any association with black children, white children, black parents, white parents here in Shaw, Mississippi. Teachers were not accustomed to teaching black kids because they thought black kids were much slower learners. We were more so stigmatized. And I think it was because of a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge, because we didn't associate prior to the integration.
This is downtown Shaw. This is the old drugstore. When I was a kid, we would ride our bikes over here and get milkshakes. And Miss Viola was the woman who worked here, and she would make our milkshakes for us and all that. And it's in pretty bad shape right now. That side of the road had as many buildings as this side, and they collapsed and they just pushed into the bayou. There were buildings all the way down facing the railroad tracks and wrapped all the way around. And in my lifetime, they're all gone. So it's been incredible to see the demise, really, of the economic center of this town. I mean, a lot of that's due to white flight. When in 1984 was the first year Shaw voted and elected an African-American mayor, and a lot of white people left town then. Shaw Clinic now, it used to be Dr. Peeler's office. He was the doctor when I was a kid. We'd walk into Dr. Peeler's office, and Martha was his secretary, right? And so everybody loved Martha. And we'd walk in, and as a kid, we would go to this waiting room to the left, and we'd sit there. And then I would look across, you could see through the little back office area, another waiting room on the other side. And I'd see all the guys I went to high school with or school with. And we never knew why we had different waiting rooms. But literally after integration, they just took the sign down. And it used to be separated by race. And it still functioned that way when I was a kid. They integrated the schools, and what changed there was that white people who had means built their own schools and called it an academy. And so you have an academy system in Mississippi that's a direct result of integration. So what was left at the public school were African-American kids and white kids who couldn't afford to go to academies. From integration to condemnation, really, the school's condemned.
When most people think about Mississippi and they think about slavery and they think about the slave plantation economy and culture and system of power, they often, I think today, imagine the Mississippi Delta, a world built around these plantations in northwest Mississippi along the Mississippi River, when in fact that wasn't the case at all. It's not an antebellum story. It's a post-Civil War story. And really, it's a post-Reconstruction story. Prior to the Civil War, the Mississippi Delta was mostly swampland because of how low-lying the land was along the Mississippi River. So each spring, as the fall and the north and the snow and the spring rains come, the river floods, and it flooded the Mississippi Delta and historically created this swampland. And it is only after 1877, with federal dollars, the building of levees along the Mississippi River and the Mississippi Delta, that the Delta is contained and turned into what is some of the most pristine farmland in the world. And you can imagine, after millennia of the Mississippi River flooding that land, the alluvial nature of the soil and the richness of that soil, what made it some of the most valuable property anywhere in the world. After the Civil War in Mississippi, there's this short period of time in which African Americans immediately out of slavery began exploding all of the mythology in and around slavery itself. You have communities being built, African American businesses, you see schools, universities, Jackson State in 1877, you see Alcorn before that. You have a Black United States congressman named John R. Lynch, who was a former slave. You have a Black Speaker of the House, Jim Hill. You have two Black U.S. senators from Mississippi during this time, Hiram Revels and Blanche K. Bruce, who are the first Black U.S. senators in American history. Until Barack Obama is elected to the U.S. Senate, there had only been 4 total Black U.S. senators in American history, and 2 were from Mississippi during this period. There was tension, particularly between radical Republicans in Congress and the then president, Andrew Johnson, who was from Tennessee and had only been appointed vice president by Abraham Lincoln as kind of an olive branch to the South. But he was no friend of freed people. he is going to pardon 13,000 Confederate veterans. When Andrew Johnson, as President of the United States, pardons 13,000 Confederate veterans, he forces the Freedmen's Bureau to give them their land back, displacing thousands of African Americans. It initiates this moment in history. You have a displaced group of freed people who now need a place to live, a source of income, and you have an upper class of white landowners who need people to work the land. And it is in this moment that you see the genesis of sharecropping. And initially, these sharecropping contracts are generally entered into with mutual agreement between both sides. Free people were saying, we need a place to live, we'll work here, we'll grow the crop, and we'll share the profits with the landowner. The landowner would say, well, you're right, we grew the crop this year, the cotton came in, we made $500, your share's $250, my share's $250. But you know what? You owe me rent. You owe me rent for the house you're in. You owe me rent for the land you're on. Oh, and by the way, I loaned you the mule and the plow and the seeds that you put in the ground. And so you owe me rent for all of those things too. Oh yeah, and I own the store that you bought your clothes and the food you ate this year on credit at. So while your share's $250, you owe me $400. And you better not leave, because if you do, we'll arrest you, put you in convict lease, and force you to work the land against your will, which then enabled the rise of a system of power that is as close as possible to what we had before the Civil War.
Vast, colorful memories, history, hurtful. That's what I see when I think about Mississippi. But this amazing place that my ancestors came in on, and they planted themselves on solid ground and taught us, you be proud when you walk. That's Mississippi for me. A lot of pain here. We don't need to disguise it. We just need to tell the truth about it.
Everybody has a story. And their photo can show their whole story. I like trying different angles. I like the nifty filter because I get a wider view of the person. I love seeing people smile. And I know that when I show them that photo, they feel better about themselves. Because that's really them in real life. They just gotta see that way. Everybody has a story. They just need somebody to tell it. Hey, Mom. My mom taught me everything. She goes to work every day. She cooks at the adult daycare, so she's always trying to help somebody. She's a hardworking woman. She raised 3 kids, and I try my best to do as much as I can to help her. And that's how I was raised. Yeah, just give me a smile, and I'm gonna back up to kind of get like a lower shot. Photography has given me a responsibility. I want to put you in the middle right here. Yeah, just like that. Natural, yes. I really like taking portraits of people. What you can do is kind of like look directly that way. Just being in the moment. And just make it look as authentic as it can be. Got my Canon Rebel T5i. This is my little buddy right here. Got my nifty 50, my favorite lens right here. My dad, he wasn't like in my life. I ain't really known much about him. All I knew was his name. I fought a lot because I was always a hard-headed kid, just doing things just to get in trouble or something like that. God put me on the earth for something, and I'm trying to figure that out.
I'm a single parent raising my kids, and there was a lot of fear for me because, you don't find a lot of people from Shaw, Mississippi, make it out of Shaw. You have a lot of them in trouble, in jail. I was scared that he might get into the wrong crowd, follow the wrong peoples, just scared he might let his guard down and, something might happen.
I try my best to stay positive and start doing the right thing. Because I know it's going to be something that's going to come up because of my mistake and what I did. So I try my best to be as positive as I can. I learned to stay to myself a little bit. I know what's right, so I'm going to go with that. Now I know it's consequence behind everything, so my mom ain't got no bail money, so I don't have time to fight.
One of the biggest challenges for some young people today is, how can I keep hope alive in my own life? Yes, there are challenges to being born poor. There are challenges living in small town, rural Mississippi. And so how do I navigate through that? How do I somehow rise above that so that I don't become a victim, but a victor? And the circumstances into which you were born do not determine your destiny. Well, I was born in a small farming community called Kale. Single parent mother, 9 children. Grew up in dire poverty. We didn't exactly know we were poor because everybody around us faced similar situations. I grew up in a home where the mother was a breadwinner, the nurturer. The local paper did an article on her years ago. In her days, she was a fine seamstress. She was the kind of seamstress, she didn't have to measure you. I mean, she could look at you, and when you put it on, it would be tailor-made. And this has been my rock, my stay. All the things, values I've learned in life came from my mother. I believe this with all my heart. I believe when God created mothers, he painted a masterpiece. Brianna, they want everybody outside today. Come here, son. I didn't grow up with a father in the home. Young man, come on, everybody outside. Move it, let's roll. As a young child, I longed for the relationship any son would have with his father. You should have brought one. You used to bring one. Say, where's your ball? Guidance, protection. Where you going? There's too many in there. Wait till John get out and then he can come help me. But there was a void in my life, a hole, so to speak. I just think that they're just inherent blessings you receive from being in intact families. I grew up longing for that. You got your sheep. About 60 to 80 kids come here every week for Bible study, for mentoring, for tutoring, for recreation. I think the circumstances of my childhood helped to pave the way for the work that I'm doing today. It's because I know there is a child somewhere in Indianola who grew up just like I did. And I don't want that child to throw in the towel or give up on life. And for that reason, I'm here to love them, to nurture them, to guide them, to provide. Your grandma gonna pick you up? Yeah, we're down the thing. Okay. Whatever I can to try to make a difference.
Our first trip to Shaw, Mississippi, we painted the back of the library because the mayor asked us to. A local guy came up and he goes, "I don't know why you paint the back of that library. These kids are just gonna vandalize it as soon as you're gone." And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, right? So I looked at him, I go, "We have more paint than they do."
With 38 years of military service, I'm a hands-on person. I'm a retired command sergeant major. I'm not an indoor mayor. I'm a working mayor. I've got just these 2 gentlemen for my public works department, and they do it all. water streets, sanitation, whatever needs to be done. And I assist them. I enjoy getting my hands wet, muddy, greasy, or whatever. It makes me feel like I've gotten something accomplished, whatever that mission is. Hey, Jill, I want to take the backhoe up on Wilson, up in the alley. I want to go and get those trees moved, so when y'all finish here, just meet me up there. I'll wrap this one up, moving to another site. Yeah. I go in the office in the morning, or as needed. My ladies at City Hall actually call me if they need me to sign something or do something. Hey, Miss Blake.
Hi.
You have anything for me?
No, I don't.
Nothing to sign?
Nothing to sign.
Do I have a check to pick up or anything?
No check.
No sandwich?
No sandwich.
Dang, no cold water?
No cold water.
When City Hall gets a call for a complaint, I believe in going actually seeing that particular person. I can't help them solve that problem over the telephone. I'd rather look them in the face and actually tell them in what direction they need to go, or if I can be of service. If I can do it, it's much cheaper, because 99% of the times, it's free. Mayor Stanton, how may I help, sir, ma'am? Okay, sure will. I'll be there in just a few minutes. I've done service all my life. I actually grew up in the country. I was 12 years old when we actually moved to Shaw. Shaw at one point was the busiest or the largest populated area for weekends now in the Mississippi Delta. It's grocery shop, it's a party. I mean, Shaw was just packed with people, stores, businesses. There was not a vacant lot.
This is Highway 49. 49 goes straight up and down through the Delta. 82 goes really across the Delta, right at this midsection, at the widest point. I drive probably 2 weeks out of the month, out of pocket, out of office, burning up the road in rural space, meeting with mayors and religious leaders and things of that nature, and trying to get national attention how rural America is falling apart. We used to live here at the Fort Fell Inn, and my dad would jump across the fence in the back and steal wood from the old lumber yard that was there, and he renovated the inside of the house to save money on rent. But nobody knew that Dad was stealing the lumber. This is where all the kids used to play football. And I was mistakenly invited to somebody's house one day for burgers because I was the only white kid out there. And then everybody stopped and looked at me like, I don't know if Jason can come or not. And so I went, and Miss Flippins, she looked at me, and you could tell she was perplexed, and she's flipping those burgers on a cast iron skillet. She'd say, I got a little white boy up in my house. And she kept on repeating it. And she's like, you want a burger, white boy? Yes, ma'am. So she made me a burger. I ate the burger. And then she goes, I got a little white boy up in my house. And then by the end, she goes, I got a little white boy up in my house. It was like this mantra made it okay. And we were all kids, man. We weren't even, I don't even know if we were teenagers yet. But so we didn't know if we were breaking rules or not. But it was a transgression we all made that ended up being okay. This is the old pool, but it was a private pool, and it was private as in whites only. Even when I was a kid in the 80s and the 90s, it's incredible to think about.
Sort of brings tears to my eyes today to see it all boarded up. So many other young people won't get a chance to have the experiences and the support that I had here in this place. There were a lot of challenges at my home. Coming from a large family of 15, it wasn't always easy. It was hard to sort of find your niche in the spot. I lived about 7 miles from here in a little town called Choctaw.
She can just sort of see the harshness of the environment. You wonder how anybody would get out alive.
My parents were not fortunate enough to have a vehicle. Our transportation pretty much depended on the school bus or someone else to bring us to town. Miss Ernestine Clark, she was the bus driver for our area. I had just delivered my baby, my first child, and I was 11th grade. It was a rough morning. I remember it like it was just yesterday. My mom and I had had an altercation. I just wanted to take my baby and just go. Miss Ernestine Clark, and God bless her soul, she allowed me to get on the bus with the baby, something that was never heard of. And then she took me to what really happened to be my mother-in-law many years later, to where I could drop the baby off and then go back to school. I tell her every time I see her how much I appreciate her for that one single event in my life. My life was not an easy life. And part of it was because of how rebellious I was as a young lady. I wanted something different than what my family, all of my family had ever had. And I didn't know how to get that. Not having the ability to see farther than the day. You'd think children wouldn't have concerns like that, but that was the atmosphere for many children, and still are for children in Shaw, is that they need a safe place.
The Mississippi Delta is just forgotten. It has no political value to any politician. The economy is concentrated in so few hands that people here are just left here. When I think of hope, I don't think of it as some kind of abstract thing that maybe one day things will get better. It's the hands of the people in the Delta working hard for something better, because they know it's not going to be given to them. They know nobody cares. So the only hope that will be generated is going to be the hope that comes from the hands of the local people. Delta Hands for Hope started in 2013. We did an assets mapping process here in Shaw. It was a town-wide event. Out of that conversation, they said, listen, we need to focus on kids in the areas of education, recreation, health, and spiritual development.
During the summer, my cousin said, let's go uptown, they got something going on. We got up here and I seen a bunch of kids, and I'm like, I don't know what we're doing, but yeah.
The kid I've seen the most change in is Rodarius. I think he was like 14 or 15 at the time. You could tell he had a whole lot more potential in him. He asked me if we could get a camera, and so that's where a photography and oral history program came from. The more responsibility I've given him, he's just blossomed.
We went to New York, and that was like so great. But before we got to New York, we had to get on the plane, which was like scary. I never been on a plane before. I'm a little bit scared of heights, so it's kind of like a little shock, but I got over it. I got over it. It was a big difference. The town to a city. You see all the skyscrapers, all the people just everywhere. I have never seen that many people dead in my life. My dreams, I want to be a traveling photographer, and when we get the opportunity to go travel, you go for it.
There are people right here in Shaw that, given the right soil, they'll produce for you. And it's sad to say that there are people who have been done so wrong, they just don't have the strength to look within themselves to see that I still have that, but I just need to just search a little bit harder. We have this jewel here. There you go. And we are in a school district that is in a lot of trouble. I really want us to partner with the school because this is a space where the teachers should come into as well, using this as a site for 21st century learning.
You know how to trace those? This is what a J should look like.
Offering up their skill sets to help turn these young people into the next Rydarius.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Girl, you are smart. That's what I'm talking about.
So, I'm kind of thinking of being a race car driver or a firefighter. I guess if those two don't work, I guess I can be a police officer. Be on the lookout for people that steal stuff or something. Actually, I'm here because my mom sends me here. And she wants me to have people that can help me with my homework. Could I come here tomorrow?
There are a lot of kids here that are struggling in the area of English language arts and math.
My name is Edward Smith. I'm searching up Benjamin Bradley for my science class.
Hi, my name is Kamari Wright, and I'm 12 years old in 5th grade. I want to be a math teacher.
So whatever it is that we have to do in order to push that forward, that's what we're gonna do.
But if you need a backpack, I have one over there for you if you need one.
I mean, I actually broke mine.
Well, you should have told me. You can pick out one now if you need it. Yeah. Okay. Your sister's ready when you are.
Okay.
I'm not ready yet, though.
Okay. All right. Well, your mom has to be at work at 5:30 now.
Oh.
The mothers, majority around Delta, they are the ones who bring in most income. Still to this day, they bring in most of the money. A man in the household, so.
The policies that were put in place to receive welfare, I think they call it public assistance now. The female head of household, so to speak, cannot be married or could not have a spouse in the household. Many scholars argue that the breakdown of the family occurred from that. In an already tenuous situation with families, impoverished families in the Delta, if you remove one of the breadwinners and make the other reliant on government assistance, it creates a whole new slate of problems. I had someone to give me the example once before of a bird that has been caged and begging for freedom. The owner of the bird plucked all of its feathers, took the ball and chain off the bird, opened the cage and said, "Now you're free."
On demographics of poverty when it comes to age, children are the most food insecure. And the next demographic out of that is senior citizens.
Yes.
They're the poorest, most food insecure. It's harder for them to access things because of transportation and mobility.
Right. And then in the veterans.
I was just meeting with a group of veterans in Vaden. And they're really trying to help other veterans get their benefits, find jobs.
Talking about poverty,
Take care of your veterans.
marrying veterans up with the benefits is not a big fix. It's not a big piece of the pie. But bringing an additional income that they earn. It's not an entitlement. It's something they already paid for. That goes back to the rural areas. You want them to be self-sustaining. You want them to earn their own income and not be dependent on someone else's charity, if you will.
And everybody I've talked to in the Delta region, in the Cotton Belt, in Appalachia, in the Rio Grande Valley, and in native lands, when I ask people who are living in poverty, what do they need? The number one thing they say they need is a job. They're not asking for federal benefits. A lot of them take it resistant. They don't like doing it, but it really is, my kid's gonna eat this month or my kid's not gonna eat this month, because benefits are like $180 a month. So the vast majority of people wanna work. They want a job. That's the number one thing I hear in 301 counties of persistent rural poverty in America. This big wave of unemployment happened with mechanization of labor.
Opportunity.
Right? And so when people who were working in the fields, and you know how hard field work is.
Take 40 now until you can do it. I've worked myself.
And those folks, they weren't saving money. And then all of a sudden they said, "Hey, listen, we don't need you anymore."
At all.
What do you do?
You move away or you get on, you start receiving benefits.
And it's bigger than those individuals struggling. is the system at work that's much bigger than that. And I think if all we're doing is trying to fix the individual, there's a lot of fixing there that's never going to fix the system.
Most of the minds and the powers that be are trying to implement things from looking at a piece of paper and have never actually lived the reality of being a person in the Delta. My father used to say, no one can tell you what it's like to be hungry other than the person that's been hungry before. It's only when you go down to the grassroots level and empower from there up that you'll actually see change.
So this is a beautiful day, isn't it? A good day for walking and for campaigning. Hello! We're putting up our signs. How y'all doing? Hi, Earl, how are you? I would appreciate your support during the election. Hi, Laquita, how are you? Oh,
Yeah.
my, you're looking good.
We want you, like Uncle Sam says, we want you to stick one in the yard. Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay. That's Mom Fannie Neal. She just had her 80th birthday. Oh, man. All right now. All right. Yes, yes. You are getting a video. It's more than your picture.
I was 8 when my mother passed away. My sisters and brothers, either we was gonna be separated or we were gonna be able to go in one place. So when Mom Fannie and Daddy really decided they was gonna take all 5 of us, that's what happened. The 5 of us stayed together.
And so they had no children, and all of a sudden here they come with 5. And the baby girl was about around 1. And then here I was about 8 years old, so yeah. I can't imagine even today taking on 5 children. I just can't imagine at one time. Back in those days when time was really hard, she did a wonderful thing taking care of us, and she and her husband.
And I love them today. I love every one of them. They got to the place, they stopped saying uncle and auntie and said mom and dad, because they know we were doing what we could for them.
Being the oldest child in the home, I felt like I was a mother to my sisters and brother. I felt like that I was the mother. Being mayor of the town, it has that same responsibility to me almost that you're responsible for everybody. It's just like everybody's your children.
Bye, babies.
You're responsible for their well-being. I think that's one of the things that touched my heart so much when I'm unable to do things that the community needs.
Look at that train shaking. In the morning, about 5:30, 6 o'clock, I be up getting my coffee. Train go through. I have to wake up everybody. That's y'all alarm clock. I like it. I watch it sometimes.
In Delta Town, still today, rivers and railroad tracks divide. You go over a river or a railroad track, you'll see the difference automatically in the economy, the housing, the businesses. You'll see the difference. If you're really gonna look at poverty, you have to start looking at greed. Are these structures set up from greed? Does greed stimulate poverty?
There's new fallout today from that massive welfare scandal that's still unraveling in the state of Mississippi.
Tens of millions of dollars meant to assist families in need were instead used for personal expenses and pet projects unrelated to Mississippi's welfare program.
The former director of that state's Human Services Department pleading guilty to federal and state fraud charges.
When we talk about change, you would love to see change, but you're trying to bring about change on old traditional structures that haven't changed. You're gonna start talking about mindset. You're gonna start talking about family values that were passed down beside recipes. If you're not at the table, you become the meal.
You want to go back to the oldest town
in Mississippi, Mound Bayou. Thriving space that slaves built. People doing very well, an economic hub. And part of what was the backbone of that economy were the goods and the supplies that came through on the railroad. And because there were individuals who didn't feel a town full of former slaves should have access to that type of economic growth, then the railroad was rerouted around the town. And so, you have the town that would naturally dry up in that case. And that doesn't happen with one person. That's a systemic change. There has to be a decision made at a large level to move a railroad.
My mother's family, they are educators. My great-grandmother was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my mother was a teacher, I'm a teacher. It just kind of happened that way. It was never a question about going to college. We raised our kids the same way.
How was school? Good.
You go to school, you work hard, you be honest, watch your character, understand your reputation precedes you.
You tell me.
Everything that we do in terms of working with our kids is centered around education and how you're going to give back to the community through that education. So every generation has its work ahead of it. And every generation's work is going to look a little bit different than the one before. And as long as there's that commitment to move forward, as long as you're forward moving, there's always the hope that things will get better. Because you don't get in the middle of the desert and stop. You gotta keep moving.
We're in a conundrum, so to speak. If you look back from almost 60 years ago with the war on poverty and Robert Kennedy visiting and all of that, you don't see much moving in the way of the statistical, or the data that's available. It looks almost the same. So you have this younger generation who says there's more to life, there's a different way that things can be done, but you have this large set of data facing you that says very little has changed. So how do you marry the two?
Education, economic development, those are two ingredients that people always talk about in their campaign. It doesn't matter whether you run for president or whether you're running for senator, congressman, but I've never seen when we are truly committed to education.
In Mississippi, we have an education formula that our state legislature passed called the Mississippi Adequate Education Program, because we don't aspire for something that's excellent in education or even above average, just adequate education in Mississippi, providing enough funds so that our school districts can receive an accountability rating of at least a C, because that's what we aspire to, just a C.
Just a couple of years ago, our governor gave a massive tax cut to the wealthiest people in the state to the tune of over $100 million. And within a couple of days, he called Mississippi to dip into the rainy day fund because there wasn't enough money to cover paying our public school teachers for the rest of the month. And yet the wealthiest people in the state who don't send their kids to public schools, those guys are getting a huge tax break while everybody else is paying their fair share. And for what? So that we could cut spending on education? That's destroying our future. I don't understand that. I don't understand the politics, and I don't understand the morality.
When I used to work for the Department of Corrections, in 1992, I was responsible for providing the population growth study. And brought some individuals in from Washington, D.C. They looked at the 3rd and the 4th grade, and they told us that the majority, or many of those students, would drop out of school after leaving the 4th grade, and they would become prisoners. So we needed to make way for them by building an additional 11,000 beds. If a group of experts can come in the state of Mississippi and forecast or predict that those young kids was not going to make it in the education system, they could see the flaws in the education system. And then they moved to telling us in the legislative body and in correction, we needed to build spaces to absorb and take them. They should have been talking to the experts in education and saying, here's a group of individuals, if you do not put them on another path, these kids, you're going to lose. If the commitment was there, we would fix the problem and we would do early intervention. We would create an education system where regardless to the zip code you live in, you were going to have a first-class quality education. If you give these bright minds, these young kids, at the age of 3 and 4, those kinds of resources and that kind of commitments, they would become super scholars. We are not giving them the commitment that is needed.
Nobody can help where they're born. You know, some kids are born into wealthy families and some kids aren't, and that's not the kid's fault. But when you're born and you're at this level and another kid is born at this level, you can say they're equal as human beings all you want, but they've been born in different places. Equality says that they're equal human beings. Equity says that we're going to give this kid a chance to start from here. If we believe that, then we have to fund it. And that does fall along racial lines, but it also falls along economic lines.
The myth of Southern exceptionalism is an idea that the South in America is historically the racist part of this country. And what it does in creating this narrative of the South being exceptional in comparison to the rest of the country, it allows the rest of the country off the hook. It ignores the role that this country, that this nation played in allowing the South to be what it was. What becomes the Mississippi Delta? What becomes sharecropping? What becomes lynching? All of these things that we think of when we think about the exceptional South are only enabled by an American story. What is often seen as the amendment that gives African Americans the right to vote, the 15th Amendment says you cannot deny or abridge the right to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. In Mississippi, they realized, well, if it can't be denied or abridged based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude, maybe we can deny it or abridge it in other ways. These white Mississippians who referred to themselves as redeemers, where they're redeeming their power, they call a constitutional convention in Mississippi in 1890 to rewrite Mississippi state constitution based around the premise that the 15th Amendment is a major loophole. And so Mississippi and these white redeemers invent poll taxes. And the poll tax was a cumulative tax. So you had to pay for every year you lived there in order to be able to vote. They also included a 2-year residency requirement. Remember, all these African Americans, they've all been displaced from where they were living. They're going to invent literacy exams. You had to understand the state constitution to the satisfaction of a voting registrar, which is a totally subjective clause. And there will be a Supreme Court case in 1898 called Williams versus Mississippi. In that case, the U.S. Supreme Court says that the Mississippi Constitution of 1890 is in fact constitutional because none of these provisions say anything about race, color, or previous condition of servitude. It leads every other Southern state that had been in the Confederacy to rewrite their state constitutions to reflect what Mississippi did, and they called it the Mississippi Plan. And overnight, Jim Crow political power becomes the law of the land. And when I talk about Jim Crow, I think we're talking about its social power, economic power, and political power. Economically, of course, we think about sharecropping. We talk about social power. I think the most obvious manifestation of that is segregation. But in Mississippi, the key point that these white leaders figured out was the political piece. If you control who can be elected to office, who can run for office, who makes the laws, you're talking about total power. Total power.
Everybody wants to know about the people in Mississippi. They want to understand why you're still here in Mississippi. I want to see us come together collectively as a people and be proud Mississippians for not only our history, but being able to tell it truthfully. Hope is out there. We just have to get it.
You see this old wood structure here? That was nothing but storage when I was a kid. But before that, that's where people lived. And it was like the hands who lived out on the fields, like my grandfather.
It's a small world. Jason's grandfather and my grandfather knew each other. My granddad worked with Jason's granddad on the farm. And he took me to the exact location, because I have been there before.
You won't get any of these to crank up because there's no battery in them. There's another shed like this where our grandfathers and your great-grandfather would sit and eat lunch every day. So I'd come out of the house and eat with them.
My grandparents, they used to stay out there.
The smell of diesel, that's the smell of my childhood. And then the smell of harvest and cotton. They'd spray defoliant on the cotton, which would make all the leaves drop off. And you could, as a kid, sit out here and watch the crop dusters just get super close to the ground.
Agricultural aviation began in the early 1920s, dusting the cotton fields of the Mississippi Delta.
At that time, that was pre-GPS, so there'd be people at the end of the field with 2 sticks that had little flags on them, and that would be flagging the plane to let the plane know where to spray. So, guess what happened to those guys? Every time. A lot of exposure.
The things he told me, I learned something. I learned a little bit more about my granddaddy, too. Because he said it was pretty close.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Our history, there's some checkered history for sure. But when I think about it, it's like not just coming to terms with our past, but using our past to move forward into something new. And Rodarius, your whole generation, there's a lot of hope there to see the trajectory that you guys are taking.
I like to see our kids prosper. I like to see them be productive citizens in whatever community, not just y'all, but wherever you end up. But don't ever forget where home is.
During the summer, I was coming back from a Delta Hands for Hope trip. And I got a text message saying this girl was telling me that she was my sister. She texted me and told me my father had just passed. So in my mind, I'm like, I didn't know how to react to it because I didn't know him at all. So I just didn't have any feelings for it. It didn't really faze me as much.
What's going on? You good?
Yeah, all good. Jason was like pretty much kind of a father figure. He was always there to pick me up if I was down.
I literally had a dorm room, 2nd floor, 2nd door from the left.
On this side?
Yeah, exactly. 25 years ago. That hurts a little bit. That's prime real estate, man, right on the road.
It's old real estate.
Say what?
It's old real estate.
So is that part?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. My only thought was to go to the Army, serve my country, make a few dollars, just to have something to keep me on my feet. I talked to Jason about it, and Jason just changed my whole mind.
All right. Worm time.
I suggest you're going to have to let them wear themselves out because with that light line, they'll break it every time.
Well, I grew up with a cane pole.
Just snatch them away.
Yeah, exactly. You just yank them in,
There's a sense of love in Shaw. There's a community. My mother and them had a practice where they would what they would call going to town. Everyone lived in the country, so when they came to town, they would buy a bag of flour, buy eggs. They would always buy one extra item for their neighbor. And so no one ever ran out. You never saw any fights. You just saw a lot of love. A lot of that's still in Shaw. We're living in a different millennium now, but at the same time, there's still that same love here in Shaw. And I think that's what Jason knows. Jason came up in the neighborhood around us, and his mom and his dad, and he had to endure some conflicts. Ho, 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 ho. Not too fast, Justin. Let him wear his ass out. Your line's kind of light now, Jason.
I know, it ain't good.
You got him on drag. Let him tie himself. I told you to let him tie himself out, Jason.
He got the whole thing.
I told you, man.
Look at that.
I remember when Jason was born. Matter of fact, his mother was my first grade teacher. She gave me my first puppy. And then later on, we both worked in the same Bill's Dollar Store in Shaw.
So to kind of make ends meet, I would work a second job at either for somebody else or at the gin during cotton picking season. I'd work 8 hours in one and work about 4 or 5 hours in the other one. So, and it was hard. And my husband worked in a factory. But a lot of times he would get laid off.
Well, we're at Modern Lines where my dad, he worked here most of my childhood. They made lawnmowers, from riding lawnmowers to just the push lawnmowers. Like almost all the manufacturing facilities in the Delta, after North American Free Trade Act, they all left. So the one my mom worked in, Color Tile, they left, and Modern Lines also left.
That factory is gone because all of that was shipped out to Mexico. So everybody that worked there, whether you'd been there 6 months or 30 years, they lost their jobs. And a lot of the people that had been there 30 years, they lost their retirement because the company went bankrupt. So they lost everything, their profit sharing and everything.
The North American Free Trade Act made it easier for businesses to trade across country lines between Mexico and Canada. And when that happened, businesses moved where there was cheaper labor. And it just destroyed the jobs here in the Delta and other regions across America. And so that industry just, in one fell swoop, just abandoned the labor in this country.
Low economic growth. It's almost a depression here.
When we lost Dixie Tobacco and when we lost Prime Source, those tax base, that money that was coming into our city that is no longer available. And it's almost as if we've been forgotten about.
I've heard people say, it was good for America. And all I hear is it was good for business. I can't say it was good for America because it wasn't good for this part of America. The Delta lost about 30,000 jobs after NAFTA. 30,000 jobs in this region. I don't know how that's good for us. And we are America. It's not a myth, it is a lie that people don't want to work. It's a lie that people are lazy. My parents were the hardest working people I knew. And the fact is you could work your finger to the bone and not make it here. And it's harder now than what it has been. So I really resent the idea that our people are lazy and sorry and don't want to work. That's a lie.
My mom was tough. She worked factories. It's like, I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna push. I got a family to feed. I'm gonna make this happen. My dad always thought he worked hard too, but he was a brawler, barroom kind of guy. And I've seen him fight as a kid. Left-handed, southpaw, all that kind of stuff. There's violence often. He drank a lot and he did a lot of drugs, so that was part of it. And I'm not saying that to disparage my dad. I'm just saying that was kind of the reality of it. And that's when Joe Jackson, he would find out that we were at these places. He would come get us sometimes. And he would put himself at risk as an African-American man going into some of that space to get us, kind of slide us out and take us home or take us to our grandma's and stuff like that, because my mom was working. I never doubt that he loved us, but he was a fighter, a straight-up fighter.
He was the best-looking thing I'd ever seen in my life. We got married and, I knew Kenny drank, but I didn't know that he was an alcoholic until we'd been married probably about a year, and there had been several episodes. Alcoholics have a sickness, but people like me also are sick because we want to fix them. Well, Jason was such a good kid until he turned 13. And he went out to see how much he could drink and how many fights he could get into. He was more or less kind of following in his daddy's footsteps.
And I wanted to be tougher than him. That was my aspiration, is to be like tough like that and a fighter.
But then he was about 16 years old, and that's when his life changed. Well, there was a New Year's Eve party that we all went to, and it was just very discouraging for me because I saw a side of him and my daughter, and I was like, this isn't how I raised them.
I was 16. My dad had set me up with his friend's sister, who was 30. And it was an attempt to like make sure I was a man kind of thing. So I'm dancing with her, cigarette, drink, out on this bar. And I looked around to find my mom, and she's at the bar, smoking a cigarette, just disgusted. And it stopped me in my tracks. It was like time stopped. And I saw my mother's face. And it was that moment I thought, it's not the way you're supposed to be. So my New Year's resolution was to quit drinking and smoking. That's when I went to this guy who would always invite me to church and say, listen, I want to try this out. Finding faith was a radical transformation for me. So I started applying and really made good grades and was set up to go to Mississippi State and go into aeronautical engineering. First couple of years was differential equations, Euclidean, non-Euclidean geometry, abstract algebra. I was gonna just do a math major, but I took my first religion class and I was like, this is it.
Finally, beloved, whatever it is.
Took Greek, loved Greek, thought I was gonna be a Bible translator. And I asked my advisor, I was like, where's the best place to study biblical languages? And he thought about it and he goes, probably Yale Divinity School. And I had no idea where that was. I didn't know if it was like the Yale.
I was a freshman in college, had finished my first semester, started preaching, and that's when I first met Reverend Wilson. One, he was famous. He was an anchor for the local news. So,
about 2,000 people knew me.
Exactly. Heron, he was the anchor for the local news in the Delta, Channel 6 News out of Greenville. He could have been Oprah Winfrey-esque. Great voice, great presence, and left that to start Delta Mission for kids in Indianola.
When I was a kid, I always dreamed of being on television. I dreamed about speaking. Didn't know where, didn't know when, didn't know how. I used to sit in front of the dresser, and I'd find any newspaper, and I'd pretend to be Peter Jennings.
We'll have a full report on World News tonight. I'm Peter Jennings in New York.
We'll bring you the latest developments on these stories coming up a little later in the broadcast. It is 7:45. Good Morning America continues after this. I used to do that as a kid. I used to imitate Billy Graham, Martin Luther King, and Peter Jennings. When I finished college, guess what I did? I went to the local television station, and I convinced that fella to hire me. Had never taken a journalism course in my life. He says the reason he hired me wasn't because he was convinced of my capabilities. He said I worried him too much.
First in the Delta, this is WABG TV6 News with Jamie Ferguson and Aaron Wilson.
Good evening, I'm Jamie Ferguson.
And I'm Aaron Wilson. One Delta town is making strides to better their community by adding at least 50 new jobs.
Well, they gave me a job as a reporter. That was a natural fit for me. I was where I wanted to be. However, during my stint at the television station, I was called to Christian ministry. This urge was inescapable. A call to impact lives, to nurture, mentor both kids and adults. Miss Evelyn.
How are you, Rod?
Doing good.
Glad to have you here today.
Good to see you. You know what I always order, don't you?
Oh, I do.
Catfish Allison, well done.
Well, I always feel like with Delta Missions, you've got somebody looking out for our children. There's somebody they can go to if they've got a problem. They know parents there.
Give me a 1. All right, you're gonna fall when we get to 3. Give me a 2. Hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up, and here it goes. Give me a 3. Ah, great, great, woo! We're actually working with second generation kids now.
I love that.
I'll be retired by the time third generation.
No, you can't retire. No, you're not gonna be every one of those people who retires.
Yeah.
If you tried, we'd find something for you to do.
Yeah. Mission work is not easy. Sometimes it's not pretty, you know? And sometimes it costs you more than you want to pay. The total results of what we do, I may not live to see it, but I take joy in knowing the seeds have been planted. Let me tell you this story. I was born in Cale, Mississippi. We had no running water. We had no central heat and 9 children in a 4-room house. One of those rooms was a kitchen. One of those rooms we didn't use because it didn't have insulation. It was too cold in the winter. 9 folks in 2 rooms. And I used to wonder sometimes about my life, what I would become, and would I be successful? Would I get out of the situation we were in? I wondered about my life early on because I grew up in poverty. It was tough. It was hard. And when I look at you this morning and I point you out and you and you and you and you and everybody on that second row and everybody on that third row, I want you to look at me because I want you to get it. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter the conditions you live in. Something beautiful and awesome can happen in your life. And sitting right here on these pews are future teachers, doctors, lawyers, athletes, firemen, policemen, and the list goes on and on. The pieces of the puzzle of your life, you don't always know where that middle piece goes or which corner this piece is supposed to. But somehow it all works together.
Some things you can't control. You can't control your family, where you come from, what people have done to you sometimes, but you can control your reaction to that and how you refuse to internalize negativity because the possible is coming. And when the possible arrives, I've got to be ready.
I do a sermon that's called There's a Richness in Poorness. The appreciation of anything is in the lack of everything. And I was born right here in Shaw. I've been here pretty much most of my life. I've traveled several years. I stayed in Texas 3 years. I stayed in California a year. But California was entirely too fast for me. I felt more at home where it seems as I didn't have anything, but I had everything. And out there where they have everything, they don't have anything. These are spare ribs. These actually are the rib tips that were removed from the rib itself. And these tips are preferred for whatever reason. People enjoy the less meat in the gristle. I'm gonna use garlic, onion powder, and preferred rub. I think the rubbing it in is what makes it special. I was in a contest at Delta State. It's called pig picking, and it's right before the homecoming game. They have sausages, barbecue sauce, baked beans, pulled pork, the ribs of choice. You have to prepare each of those items and they're rated. My little one grill that I use was just a minute picture of a grill compared to some of those that were there. They came in transfer trucks with full kitchens and layouts of all this professionalism. And however, but when the day ended, I ended up with first place in my baked beans, first place in my barbecue sauce, and first place in my rib. And out of 26 vendors, I think I ended up in 5th place. They thought it was amazing. They wanted to know it. I was even interviewed. One doctor came. He said, I don't pursue many things, but I'm gonna find out what you put in that Mississippi Joe sausage if that's the last thing I do. And I said, man, you can do this. It's nothing to it. One recipe you gotta have in everything you do, you gotta have love. If you got love and you share love, it's gonna win everybody come along, because everybody you know wants some love or needs some love.
The challenges of Shaw can be great, just as any rural community. I think about the experiences I've had. So much insecurity, so much uncertainty, what the future held for me, how I was gonna even make it. This is where I met the love of my life, and he still keeps me smiling. This is where they had the summer baseball league. Joe came up to bat, and I liked what I saw.
Looking back, somebody trying to catch my attention.
I got a little closer to the fence, and I sent my own special signal.
And that was Cora sissing like a snake. I was more of a solo type fellow, you know, old-fashioned. She was younger than I was, so I went to her mom and asked if it was okay that I could come by and visit with her. She said okay.
He came to Choctaw, and I was there at the store. I loved to play Pac-Man. We hit it off pretty good. He took me to my first movie. He taught me how to drive, taught me how to cook. I hate to say it, but he did. I want to share a little love note. He used to call himself a poet. Anytime he wrote anything to me, it was going to be in a poem. Can I share what's inside?
You already have?
It says, my love, in this hectic life, we can never seem to talk, touch, and share as much as we want to. But time never goes by so quickly that I don't stop and think of you and smile and feel glad that we're together. I love you. And it says, baby, I know that I'm such a lemon head. And he had given me a box of lemon head to go with this. And when it comes to keeping you happy, but there is nothing more that I desire to do other than shower you with kisses of love. Joe. Things like that, even when we had bumps in the road, just sort of helped to smooth the bumps out a little bit. He rescued me out of so many life situations. If you've ever been to Choctaw, you understand the challenges that are in that place. Joe, he had moved out to Texas, and he wanted me to come out, and my mom refused to let me go. At that point, I was just fed up with my family situation. My plan was to make sure that I finished school. Once I finished school, I was leaving and I was never coming back. I was determined to get out of Choctaw. The night of graduation, I remember putting on my cap and gown, and I packed up everything that I had, and I left Shaw going to Texas where he was. There was a prophecy that was given to me from a minister that I met. I'll never forget it. You getting ready to go on a journey, and everything you put your hands to do is going to prosper. I'm thinking like, he has to be crazy because I messed up life so bad. You know, what good can come out of it? I had no idea that we were getting ready to come back to Shaw, because I promised that I would not come back to my mama's home. We moved back here, we got married. How long was I late, Joe, for the wedding?
No.
This picture is special to me because this is my mom. This is one of the pictures I have of her walking and participating in the wedding. Shortly after, her health started to decline really, really fast. Before she passed, we were able to mend broken relationships. I could have easily dropped out of high school after everything that was going on, but because of support from Joe and so many, I was able to move forward with my life with him. This picture is the culmination of that. It is the doctorate of social work degree from Tulane University. And I can remember our first week of class with Tulane. The instructor asked us, "What do you all want this degree for?" And I began to tell them that I want this degree for my community. This is for Shaw.
Mississippi, you're progressing. You're talking to me today, and I'm an African-American woman running the two largest museums in the state of Mississippi. Go figure that. The thing with progression here is, though, in some points we are regressing. So it's like a balance that we're gonna have to figure out, what do we do? The old South is gone. We are not old Mississippi.
Now to the historic decision in Mississippi to bring down the state flag, which has flown for 126 years.
Our vote is 37-14. The bill passes.
Lawmakers late Sunday officially retiring the Confederate battle emblem.
The flag was the emblem of the Confederate Army in the U.S. Civil War. It fought in part to keep slavery in America. Slavery was abolished, but attitudes and policies of segregation would persist. Wherever people protested against civil rights, this flag was usually there.
They handed me those flags here at the two Mississippi museums. And I always tell people that, for me, a little dark-skinned girl from West Jackson, Mississippi, was able to hold something that covered my grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents and didn't give them any rights. That was big for me. It was weight to just put them in my hands. I crumbled a little bit, but then something said, I think it was the ancestors telling me to get up, daughter, and stand up straight. And you take this evil, and you hold on to it like you're a superwoman. When you think about the Civil War, Robert E. Lee, who said we need to retire this flag because it's going to show divisiveness. So 126 years later, we're still talking about the same thing. So we have to change. As the flag is new, we become new.
You know, we speak of forgiveness. I know we use it loosely and we talk about it callously. But if we really could grasp what true forgiveness is, slate clean, never to remember it. And then, what happens when you forgive yourself? And what happens when you forgive the brute? It will transform the United States of America.
It all started with me trying to figure out a college I wanted to go to next after I left community college.
Now, here at Mercer, I wanted to say congratulations to the students that have taken this step and realizing this opportunity that's here in front of you. Congratulations to you students and all that you've accomplished.
So I'm here to interview to receive a scholarship. I'm not nervous. I think I'm ready for it. I think I'm ready just to get it over with, so. Yeah.
Ready? What is it about you that will stand out in a pool of photographers and videographers to make you different in this field?
Well, where I came from. Because where I came from, it's not a lot of people that really just make it out to do things like this. Not a lot of people have jobs. Not a lot of people have the opportunities to get out and search for things like that. Not a lot of people have the opportunity to go to college. I'm gonna be able to tell their story from my perspective. If I get knocked down, I'm just gonna get back up.
Well, it was super nice to meet you.
Great that this worked out. Glad we got there. Ain't be too late, yeah.
Rod, what's going on? Okay, so Jason, I just got the call today. Ashley just let me know that I got accepted into Mercer. That's a big step in the right direction. How do you feel? Feel pretty good. You feel pretty good. You're the most understated human being.
Rodarius is very smart. And he is strong enough to believe in his future and being successful. I have a high school education, but I didn't go to college. And to see my kids and Rodarius get out high school and go to college and do something that he dreamed of doing, I am overjoyed, that he's making that step.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss everybody.
Get right there, hug. Say, see you later.
See you later.
See you later. No.
Love it.
I guess so.
Oh, it's my baby boy. I miss you now. I'm still not ready, but I'm beginning to accept the fact that he's grown up. Makes me a very proud mom. Let me know that I did my job. So never think that because you're a single parent that you can't succeed with your kids, because you can. I'm a living witness that you can. And it's awesome. Very awesome.
I think we all ought to tap into that little kid that's inside of us. Kids are always filled with such hope, joy, laughter. And I'm still this same little boy of these many years. I'm still hopeful, still dreaming. And this is where I used to come and practice my gift. Back here on the banks of the sand pit. I used to slip back here as a kid. To me, the water was the audience. I would write little speeches, hear my voice echo through the trees. And so I say to you today that even though we face the difficulties of today and
on this planet, on a certain continent, in a certain country, in a certain state, in a certain county, in a certain city, on the corner of a certain street, God is at work.
You know, my joy has been this. Periodically, it doesn't happen every day, but sometimes I'm in a grocery store and a child come up and say to me, "Do you know me?" The kid says, "I remember all the Vacation Bible School lessons." You have all right except one. Every one is right except one. Go back and find the one that's wrong. An adult male who's the principal of an elementary school, but who grew up at Delta Mission from 1st grade to 12th, and says thank you. You know what my joy is? Just last week, a woman came up to me and said, "If it had not been for you," she said, "I don't know where we would be." It doesn't bother me that we're not in a cathedral. That's not my focus. You know what counts? People count. When you touch one life, your living hadn't been in vain. And honestly, at the core of my being, this is my truth. It doesn't matter to me what color you are. It doesn't matter to me what ethnic group you belong to. It doesn't matter to me what your upbringing was like. That doesn't matter to me. You deserve to live a life filled with hope. You deserve a chance. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be mentored and helped. You deserve to be nurtured.
There you go.
So that one day you can rise, and wherever life takes you, you can touch a life. That's what it's all about. Touching lives and changing hearts.
In telling these stories, you never know who hears you. You never know who's listening. The footsteps are there. The road is already paved. It's just being able to walk in it, understand it, because it's bigger than you.
Congratulations. You did it, boy. You did it.
Something unusual is happening in our world. Something good, it's something invigorating, it's something encouraging, and it's getting our attention.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap.